Common theme in the WNBA is how poorly officiated these games can be.
Did the WNBA just get caught rigging a game in plain sight? That's the question millions of fans were asking after one of the most bizarre, suspicious finishes in league history. A night when whistles didn't just change a game, they nearly destroyed the credibility of the entire league. This wasn't a missed foul or a single bad call. What happened inside Crypto.com? Arena looked more like theater than basketball, and right at the center of it all was Caitlin Clark, the brightest star in the sport, sitting helplessly on the sideline as the chaos unfolded, her outrage captured on national TV and exploding across the internet within minutes. But to understand why this moment has shaken the league to its core, you have to peel back the layers. The strange officiating, the silenced coaches, the whispers about corruption, and a commissioner whose response may have only poured gasoline on the fire. August 29th, Los Angeles. The Indiana Fever walked into the arena battered and underestimated. They weren't supposed to win. They weren't even supposed to survive Caitlin. Clark, the rookie phenom who had electrified the league and shattered viewership records, hadn't touched the floor in nearly 20 games. A nagging injury forced her into street clothes, leaving her teammates to fight without the
lack of competence from the people wearing the striped suits. Every time I watch a WNBA game, a thought crosses my mind when it comes to the officials, and that thought is, how much money do you have?
League's biggest attraction. The Fever were shorthanded. 3 other rotation players were out. The roster was stretched thin. Analysts predicted a comfortable win for the Sparks. Yet somehow, through grit and sheer defiance, Indiana clawed its way into contention. Lexi Hall set the tone. Bruised and battered from a previous collision, she stepped onto the court with 2 black eyes. Most players would have sat out, not her. She fought through the pain, a living symbol of what the Fever were about. Resilience, toughness, heart. Odyssey Sims added her own layer of drama. Facing her former team, she turned the night into a revenge story, pouring in the final 5 points that kept Indiana alive. And in the paint, Aaliyah Boston was unstoppable. Despite constant no calls and rough defense, she delivered 22 points and a career-high 6 steals. By the final minutes, Indiana led 76-75. They had silenced the doubters. They had overcome the injuries. They had earned the win. But their toughest opponent wasn't wearing a Sparks jersey. It was wearing stripes. With less than 4 seconds on the clock, Kelsey Mitchell, one of the most reliable scorers in the league, stepped to the free throw line. 2 shots, make both, and the game was sealed. The arena held its breath. Mitchell's first shot clanked off the rim. The pressure doubled. She dribbled, exhaled, and released the second. Another miss. The door cracked open for Los Angeles. Even so, time was gone. The Sparks had no path left. The Fever had still done enough, but that's when everything turned upside down. The referee stopped the game. Out of nowhere, they awarded the Sparks a timeout, and then unbelievably, they put 0.1 seconds back on the clock, a tenth of a second. Anyone who's ever touched a basketball knows you can't do anything in 0.1 seconds. You can't even catch and shoot. It's impossible. Yet suddenly the Sparks were handed life. What followed was pure chaos. The final 3.9 seconds stretched into nearly 5 minutes of real time. Whistles blew. Players shuffled in confusion, and the refs huddled again and again as if searching for a way to extend the game. Fans watching at home were stunned. Social media lit up instantly. What are we watching? How is this even legal? The Fever had already fought through every obstacle imaginable. But this didn't feel like competition anymore. It felt like something else entirely. And then came the moment that lit the internet on fire. Caitlin Clark, sitting on the sideline in street clothes, could no longer contain herself. The cameras caught everything, the wide-eyed disbelief, the shaking of her head, the furious shouts toward the officials. Her body language screamed what every fan at home was thinking. This wasn't basketball. This was a setup. Clark wasn't even playing, yet she became the emotional epicenter of the entire night. Because when the league's most important star, The woman single-handedly driving record-breaking ratings erupts in outrage. It's no longer just about the scoreboard. It's about the credibility of the league itself. Clips of her reaction exploded across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Fans captioned the videos with lines like, "We all felt like Caitlyn last night." Even neutral observers shook their heads, wondering how officials could twist the rules so blatantly. But Clark's fury didn't come out of nowhere. This wasn't just one bad night. It was the breaking point of something much bigger. For weeks, the Fever had lived through questionable officiating. Head coach Stephanie White had called it out again and again. Every time she did, the league fined her. Every time she tried to protect her players, she was silenced. She said it plainly. Aaliyah Boston is the most unfairly officiated post player in the league. She takes the same contact as other stars. But instead of whistles, she gets silence. She pointed to Kelsey Mitchell, one of the best slashers in women's basketball. But night after night, she's hacked on every drive with no protection. It wasn't just coaches' complaints. Fans saw it. Analysts whispered about it on broadcast. The numbers even backed it up. Boston and Mitchell weren't getting the calls their play deserved. The Fever weren't just unlucky. They were fighting against a pattern, and Clark's eruption was the moment that frustration boiled over for everyone to see. Up to this point, the players had mostly kept their frustrations quiet, letting their coach take the fines. But after Los Angeles, that silence shattered. Sydney Colson, sidelined by injury, turned to social media. She didn't hold back. She said exactly what fans had been screaming at their TVs. Kelsey Mitchell gets assaulted every game, and the referees refused to blow the whistle. Her words were explosive. She even joked, half serious, half not, that she might ask her sister, a lawyer, to pursue legal action. Think about that. A player openly suggesting that officiating is so biased, so brutal, that it borders on negligence. Clark saw the post instantly and warned her teammate, "Careful, you'll get fined." She knew how the league operated. Speak out and you pay the price. But Colson doubled down. She mocked the refs. She called the officiating a joke. And once those words hit the internet, there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. Screenshots spread. Hashtags trended. Fans rallied behind the players. For the first time, the outrage wasn't just coming from the sidelines, it was coming directly from the athletes themselves. And that's when the whispers began. For months, fans had complained about bad calls. But after Los Angeles, the conversation shifted. Was this really incompetence, or was it something far more deliberate? Rumors began circulating. Quiet talk of referees receiving discretionary bonuses, payments that didn't appear on official, league salary sheets allegedly funneled through third-party firms ranging from $5,000 to $15,000 per season. Not life-changing money, but just enough to raise questions. And the purpose? To maintain competitive balance. If true, that phrase is chilling. It suggests referees weren't just managing games. They were shaping narratives, making sure certain teams didn't get too hot too fast, making sure storylines stayed balanced, even at the expense of fairness. Was it coincidence that so many of the Fever's suspicious endings piled up in the same season? Was it coincidence that their coach kept screaming about bias while their young core got battered without calls? Or was the league quietly trying to keep its rising star from upsetting the balance of power too quickly? Of course, none of this has been proven. But the timing of these whispers, exploding right after one of the strangest endings of the season, was impossible to ignore. And once fans heard the word payouts, it wasn't just about missed calls anymore. It was about the integrity of the sport. At the top of the league sits Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, the person fans expected to restore trust. This was her moment to lead, to calm the storm, to protect her athletes. Instead, her response only deepened the crisis. When asked about the officiating, Engelbert dismissed the outrage. Her words landed like a slap. No winning team ever complains about officiating. Fans couldn't believe it. The Fever did win that night. They fought through injuries, overcame chaos, and still walked out with the victory. Their outrage wasn't about losing. It was about almost having their win stolen in front of the world. To many, Engelbert's words sounded like gaslighting. Instead of protecting players, she seemed to protect the system. Instead of acknowledging the problem, she punished the truth tellers. Coaches fined, players threatened, fans insulted. For a league trying to grow, fueled by the popularity of Caitlin Clark, that was a devastating miscalculation. And now, the biggest question of all. What happens when Caitlin Clark comes back? After 19 games sidelined, she's already returning to practice. Clips of her shooting around are going viral. Her comeback is days away. Her return should be a celebration, a moment of hope for a Fever team that survived the storm. But instead, there's fear. Because if this much chaos unfolded while she sat on the bench, what will happen when she's back in uniform? Clark doesn't just play basketball, she changes. Ratings, ticket sales, headlines, she shifts the league's entire balance. And in a system that whispers about competitive balance, that makes her both an opportunity and a threat. Will the league let the story play out naturally? Or will we see more strange calls, more suspicious endings, more attempts to control the narrative? The Indiana Fever escaped Los Angeles with a win, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like survival. They had beaten the Sparks. But their real opponent wasn't on the floor. It was the system itself. Caitlin Clark's eruption wasn't weakness. It was a warning shot, a scream that forced the WNBA's dirty laundry into the spotlight. And the question now hangs heavy over the league. Was this just a night of human error? Or did we just watch the WNBA tip its hand in broad daylight? Because if it's the latter, the Fever's battle is only beginning, and Caitlin Clark's return could be the spark that exposes everything.